Good morning and welcome, everyone. My name is Karen Hamill from HalenHardy's team. I am the Environmental Health and Safety Regulatory Expert and trainer for HalenHardy, and I'd like to welcome you and thank each of you for being with us today as we talk about preparing your facilities and preparing your operations for the winter months. Seems like not long ago we were talking about preparing for the summer months, and sure enough, the seasons have come upon us and we're getting ready for the winter months. So let's take a look at some of the things that you can do, hopefully low cost operations and low cost solutions that will help keep your facility ready and keep your people prepared for everything that needs to be done this winter. Coming from a safety background, one of the ways that I get ready for operations in the winter is to perform a risk assessment. And this is very common in the safety field. And what it is looking at your different operations, looking at the different things that you do within your facility, and taking that look at what can go wrong, what can happen that is going to interrupt other things that I need to get done for this day. And how can I mitigate that? What can I do now so that when something does happen, or if something does happen, I'm not going to have as severe as an effect, or I'm going to be able to just jump in and correct that situation so that it doesn't cause a long-term interruption, or so that it doesn't cause harm to my employees, or whatever that case may be. So if you kind of look at preparing for winter as winter being the risk and looking at what you can do to mitigate that now, it kind of helps you to frame what you may need to do or what you may need to prepare in order to be ready for the winter months ahead. And one of the things that you can look at are, what are your essential operations? What is it within your facility that absolutely must be done? And this could be, let's say you're a utility. You absolutely must keep the power on. If the power goes out, you absolutely must restore it. If you are delivering fuel, the fuel needs to get to the station. If roads are closed, how are you going to navigate around that? Whatever that situation is for your company, and it could be that there are many essential operations. You need to keep track of your people. You need to make sure that your facility is open because clients need to come to it. Maybe you're a hospital. Whatever that case may be, what are the things that absolutely must get done in order for your business to survive, and in order for your customers or your clients to be satisfied? And again, that's going to be different for everyone, but those things are, they're becoming more popular for people to look at their essential operations. And this could be something that's already established in your company's business continuity plan. If your facility does have a business continuity plan, take a look at that, because that's going to outline what your corporate officers feel are those essential operations. Those, absolutely, we must do this. This is something that we can't function as a company or as an organization without doing these things. So list those things, and have those, be mindful of those, because those are the things that you really want to take a look at and say, okay, if these are essential, what do I need to do to make sure that those things continue to function during these winter months? So what concerns do you have when you look at those essential operations? Do they concern your personnel? Are your personnel going to be outside in the winter months? Are you going to need to look at possibly hiring temporary personnel or replacement workers if your workforce becomes ill? We've all gone through the pandemic. It seems like we've learned a lot from that, and one of the things that we've learned is that we may need to rely upon for workforces that maybe aren't as well trained. If they aren't as well trained, what does that mean for our operations? Things are going to take longer. Things are going to need to have more supervision. What does that mean personnel wise? What equipment do we need for the winter? Do we need different things than we rely on in other months? Do we need more equipment? Do we need less equipment? Is our equipment going to be running longer, or is it going to be sitting idle? These are questions that we can ask now so that we can make those preparations. If we need to rely on backup heaters or generators, are those things ready? Is that equipment going to be available when we need it? And also power. What happens if our power goes out? What happens if we need additional power or we need to rely on less power in the winter? What are those things that we need to do and we need to look at to keep those essential operations flowing? The next area is stocking up. I know in Pennsylvania, when we start to see salt and we start to see rock salt and things available at the hardware stores or at the big box stores, that's the time to start getting those things, because if we wait until the first snow falls and we wait until after the first snow has landed, those things tend to be less available. And we tend to not be able to get the things that we need because there's already been a run on it and people have already started stocking up on it. So, what are those things that we need now in order to get through the winter months? Could it be rock salt? Are there tools available? Do I need to get new shovels now? Do I need to make sure that my generators have enough fuel? Do I need an extra fuel can to put on different vehicles so that everything in my fleet is able to operate? Are there any other things and tools that I need? Are there raw materials that I may need to stock up? A lot of companies, a lot of facilities have gone to just-in-time ordering, and they're used to having their raw materials come in for their production on a set schedule. If something gets delayed by 2 or 3 days, if the rail lines can't get through, if the trucks can't get through to your facility, do you have enough raw material and enough product to produce what you need to produce? These are all things that we can start looking at now so that we have those agreements in hand, so that we have those arrangements already made and we have those things that we need before it becomes a crisis or before it creates a problem for the facility. Next, we're going to take a look at personnel. And personnel, of course, are an asset that we should be really looking at within our company. Without our people, chances are things aren't going to run well. And as I mentioned, people can become ill. They may not be able to get out of their house because the roads are impossible, whatever that case may be. So let's take a look at some of the things that we can do now to make sure that our personnel are as available as possible, are able to articulate any needs that they might have, and are better prepared for these winter months. And the first thing is to have a communication plan. Do you have updated contact information for everyone? Are you able to get a hold of people? Do you know their current phone number? People change phone plans frequently. People can move frequently. So these are things, especially in our mobile society, that can be hard to keep track of. So just take the time to make sure that your contact list is updated. And that can be as simple as sending out texts to everybody, making sure that none of them bounce, making sure that all of them are answered. Just ask for a simple verification, yes or no, is this your current contact? Or no, I've changed it. Or if you don't get a reply, check in with that person to make sure that you do have that information that you need to stay in contact with them. This is something that human resources can help you with. If you've got a human resources department, they should have this information up to date anyway. But if they don't, it's something that they need to have as well. But just being able to communicate with your people to say, hey, look, the roads are really bad. Take your time getting to work today. Or for them to let you know that I'm not feeling well. I'm not going to be able to come in today. Whatever that communication plan is, or maybe a road is closed and they need to take a different route. Whatever you need to do with that communication plan, there are a lot of great tools and apps that allow you to do that. But for smaller companies, it could be just as simple as having a group chat. Whatever that means for your company, have that plan in place and make sure that those contacts are updated so that communication could go both ways. You can send information to your employees, to your workforce, and they can get in touch with you to let you know what's going on as well. The next is to look for ways to maintain your workforce. Again, winter months, they bring on colds, they bring on flus, they bring on other illnesses. People can't get to work for a lot of different reasons. Maybe the school has closed and they don't have childcare to take care of their small children while they're at work. Whatever that case may be, what are the things that you can do now to help minimize that? And that could be as simple as posting posting signs to help people remember to wash their hands frequently, not touch their face, whatever that means to keep them well. Maybe it's a matter of having healthful drinks for them, orange juice or whatever in the morning, so that they can maintain that and keep their bodies able to fight illnesses a little bit better. Maybe it is something where you've got alternative childcare arrangements so that their children have a place to go when the parent is working. Maybe it's a matter of looking at having them put winter tires on their car if that is a needful thing. But what is it that people are going to need in order to be at work and to be present and to be able to perform those essential functions that you've established? For anybody who's working outdoors, do you have some kind of a work procedure in place so that you're acknowledging the fact that it can be dangerous to be working outdoors when the weather is really cold, when the wind is ripping through the tree, well, through what used to be the leaves on the trees. But when it's cold and wet outside, people can't be out in those conditions as long as they can under more temperate weather. Look at the different organizations who have already established work rest schedules. OSHA has information on it. NIOSH has information on it. They have charts that you can use to determine when it is this temperature, when the wind is this many miles an hour. This is what's safe for people to be outside working. And sometimes, depending on the wind chill, depending on how damp it is outside, you may only be able to have people out for 10 or 20 minutes at a time to perform a function, and then allow them to come in and have that warm rest place so that they're not being subjected to hypothermia and other cold weather illnesses and injuries. So what are those work rest schedules? Do you have them established now? Do you need to establish them now so that people can be safe and people will be able to perform those functions on a routine basis without having those injuries? Do you need to establish warming shelters? Warming shelters can be something, there are a lot of great innovations with warming shelters that I've seen in the past 5 years. Some of them are like a pop-up tent, and you pop them up like you would pop up uh, a sporting event tent, or sometimes they're a blow-up tent, and you just hook the blower up to it and it blows itself up. Sometimes it can be as simple as putting up plastic sheeting so that people are guarded from the wind. Maybe you don't have the ability to do that because those can't be expensive options. Maybe your warming shelter is just getting back into the cab of the truck and running the heater a little bit so that people can stay warm. What do those things mean for you, and how can you prepare those now so that expectations can be met? Because of course, if you can't work somebody for a full 8 hours and you can only work them for 4 hours, what does that mean staffing wise? Do you need to bring on more staff? Do you need to look at your daily production or your daily operations and say, okay, we can't do 8 hours. What can we do in 4? Do we need those warming shelters? Am I going to need to allow for more fuel in the vehicles because I've got people in the cabs warming up between each of their working shifts, between each of the operational tasks that we've given them? Look at those things now so that you have those expectations met, so that operations can continue and you are able to have those people stay safe in those outdoor occupations. The next is winter apparel, and this is one that often stir a lot of feathers for people because when you look at OSHA's requirements for personal protective equipment, they actually specify that plain winter wear is not something that the employer needs to supply. Now, we also know, though, that OSHA's standards and OSHA's regulations are a minimum. Consider your workforce and consider whether or not you want to provide winter apparel for them. And this could be hats, this could be gloves, this could be boots, it could be coveralls, whatever those things may be. Even though OSHA doesn't necessarily require it and doesn't mandate that you have to provide those items for your people, when you do provide them for your people, it helps to ensure that they do have that proper protection and they do have the things that they need in order to perform their jobs correctly. So this is something to consider. And one nice thing about it is when you supply the winter apparel for them, you can also incorporate other safety features into it. So perhaps this is something where you're providing a high vis coat, a high vis winter coverall, whatever those things may be. You can incorporate that into the winter design and the winter layers that they need for it to keep themselves warm while they're performing that function and also remain visible if they are in a traffic situation or in a situation where they do need that high vis apparel. So consider that, even though it may not technically be required by OSHA, it is something that you can do as a protective element to help keep your people safe in the winter. I've also got a pair of cleats here on a pair of work boots. If your operations have people outside, it's sometimes hard to tell whether or not that surface is icy. Something as simple as providing ice cleats for the workers who do need to go outside can help keep them on their toes and help keep them from falling and help prevent an injury for a very small amount of money. The next is to look at what employees are traveling. So if you've got fleet operations, anybody who is on the road, maybe you have a sales force, maybe you've got people who are traveling by plane. What do those travel plans look like for employees? And how are they going to differ when there are bad weather conditions? Maybe the roads are icy. Maybe you've got high wind conditions. Maybe you've got just a lot of snow that people can't pass. How is that going to alter what you need to get done? What are you going to do for those employees? What if you have employees who get stranded somewhere? Are there provisions in place that allow them to get a hotel for the night? Are there provisions in place that tell them what to do? Have they been taught what they need to do when their car is at the side of the road and they can't go any farther? What does that plan look like? And how are you going to provide for those employees so that they can remain safe and they can still help support your operations throughout the winter months? Because we all know it's not practical to just say, okay, nobody's traveling from October to April. That's just not practical. So what does that plan look like for anybody who is on the road, whether they're a fleet operator every day or maybe just somebody who needs to get to the airport? What does that look like for your workforce? Next, let's take a look at working surfaces. Working surface, slip, trips, and falls to the same level are the second leading cause of workplace injuries, and that's second only to sprains and strains. And it's kind of obvious, it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that the slip, trip, and fall injuries are occurring more frequently in the winter months because we do see a lot of surfaces that are more slippery. We see black ice patches. We see people who are getting out of vehicles and immediately falling because they're getting out of the vehicle and stepping directly onto ice. We see sidewalks that aren't cleared. We see entrances that are not well maintained. Whatever those things may be, those are all contributing to people falling more frequently and having greater injury rates during the winter months. So what can we do to look at those and mitigate those now? And one of the big things for people, one of the big places that these injuries are occurring is in entrances. And the reason for that is you're coming from an outdoor location and you're usually crossing into something that to an area that maybe has vinyl flooring or maybe has a very smooth floor. So you're going for an area that can tend to be very slippery. Also, you've got the temperature change. So all that snow that's being tracked in is now becoming wet floor. You've got a puddle on the floor and people are slipping in it. So what does that look like for your facility? What do you need to do in those entrance areas? It could be matting outdoors. It could be putting up a canopy over an entrance so that you're minimizing the amount of liquids that are being tracked into the building. Do you need signs? Do you need mops? How are you going to keep that area safe? And this is something just like stocking that rock salt. Get those things in place now so that when that bad weather starts, you know, and you're able to take care of it immediately instead of saying, oh, you know what? Maybe we need another mop bucket. Oh, where are we going to get another mat? Do I need some paper towels? What is that? What are you going to do? And what supplies do you need now? Have a plan for your snow and ice removal. And this is something that a lot of facilities don't do their own snow and ice removal. They will contract that out with their landscaping company, or they're contracted out with somebody who specializes just in removing ice and snow. But what is that arrangement that you have with that outside contractor if you're using one? When are your sidewalks going to be shoveled? When is your parking lot going to be plowed? When is the road to your facility going to be plowed? What are these and what time frame do they have to get that done? One of the big problems that we see is that your workforce starts to arrive and they're arriving while the snow is still in the parking lot. They're arriving while the snow is still on the sidewalks, and they have to get out then and tromp through the snow. If there's ice under that, slip and fall injuries. So what does that plan look like for your facility? When are these things going to happen? If you're removing your snow and ice yourself, do you have the snow plows? Are they in good condition? Are they maintained? Do you need to take them for service now so that they're ready to go? Do you have snow blowers? When's the last time they've been serviced? Do you have the ice melt that you need? Kind of already touched on that one. But looking at those things now and having those maintenance plans in place, having that equipment serviced and ready to go is going to mean the difference between being able to get that taken care of so that you don't have those injuries at your facility, and you don't have the delays that you aren't in having those services. Looking for hidden objects. This is a problem that happens every year, and somebody runs into a fire hydrant, knocks the hydrant off, and then the fire department has to come and re-establish that hydrant, and it's a slippery mess, and it causes a lot of different problems both for the fire company as well as the facility. So look for ways to mark your hidden objects. And there are a lot of great ways to do this. You can do it simply with a wooden stake. There are a lot of little great flags out there that you can purchase, but how are you going to mark those things so that when people are plowing and when people are in the area, they know that it's there? Parking curbs are a huge one. Especially when they're in a parking lot and they're delineating maybe between aisles or whatever, they are a huge trip hazard when people can't see them. So look for ways to mark those, or possibly even remove those during the winter months so that they aren't presenting that hazard either to pedestrians or to anybody who's trying to plow that lot. The next are establishing areas for your snow piles. It's one thing to remove the snow from an area, but where are you going to put it? How can you put that in an area so that when it melts, it's not going to freeze and create a problem for you? But how are you going to put area so that you're not blocking any exit routes that you may need? Consider where that pile is going to go now so that as the lot is being plowed and as the area is being maintained, there's a place for it to go. And it could mean that you need to get it out of have it out of there. What does that mean for your facility? How much snow are you anticipating? I know that's kind of a hard one, but where are you going to go? Where are you going to put it so that it's not going to create a problem for you as it melts and as you get later into the months and you have to create more a larger snow pile in the area? Have a place to put that so that it's not going to create an issue for you later. The next one is to look at your storm drains and remove the debris around the area now. So this is something that we often see at facilities. They didn't take the time to look at their storm drains beforehand, and when the water and ice start to build up in them, the drain freezes over and it starts to back up. So look at ways to remove the debris both in and around the drains now, so that as the snow melt gets into it and as the water starts to flow, it's able to go somewhere and it doesn't back up and it doesn't create problems for you with the ice backing up into your parking lots now. And look at your lighting. Is your lighting adequate for your facility? Is it time to add some more lighting into your parking lots, maybe into entrances, maybe onto common areas? Is there enough light for people to see? It gets dark sooner now. It's dark longer. And quite often, especially in the winter months, especially when it's cloudy and overcast, it can be hard to see. And that can create problems both from a security standpoint as well as from a walking standpoint. You're not as able to see an icy patch, or you're not as able to see something that may be in your way that could cause a slip and fall accident. So look at lighting in your facility and whether or not maybe you need to put in brighter lighting or just additional lighting so that everybody is able to have the visibility that they need to do their job. And this is important also for workers who are doing remote operations. So if we're expecting somebody to change a transformer out, or we're expecting somebody to perform a task in the dark. Do they have the lighting that they need? Do your fleet vehicles, do your operations have the amount of lighting that they need to perform those operations safely? Area is can we do at fix to make sure what they need, building is safe that we're performing, is looking at space. And space heaters are something that a lot of people are leery of, and for good reason. We do know that space heaters can cause a lot of fires annually. So this is something that if you need to have space heaters within your facility, make sure that you have enough space around them so that they nothing around them can catch fire. Is it safe to have a space heater within your facility? Check that out first. Perform that as a risk assessment. Look at the benefits of having it, and look at alternatives to having a space heater as well. Is there something else that you can do instead of putting a space heater in that space? Make sure that your smoke detectors are operational. If you've got sprinkler systems, make sure that they've been inspected, and look for ways to increase your ventilation, because anytime you've got a space heater, of course, you want to make sure that the air is free to move around so that you're not creating an unsafe situation with carbon monoxide going up. What are you going to do if there's an extended power outage? This is one that of course is very hard to predict. You never know. We never expect the power to go out, but when it does, it can cause a lot of different problems for our facilities. We can't maintain operations. We have to stop things. It can cause batch problems. And of course, if you are providing power services, everybody wants their power back now. So what can you do proactively to preempt those things and to mitigate those things? Maybe it means that you install a backup generator. And if you have a generator, when was the last time it was tested? Is it ready to go? Is it going to service you well? Is it going to provide the power that you need? Are your surge protectors in place to protect any computers and other essential functions that you have? What if it's going to be a long time? What if it's going to be a week before the power is restored? What if there's been a natural disaster and you're not going to get power back for a month? What does your facility need? Again, looking at that business continuity plan, or looking at those essential functions. How are you going to keep those going? Do you need another facility? Do you need to look at relocating to another place? What does that look like if that power outage is going to be more than a few minutes or a few hours? And also look at portable chargers. And this is something they're readily available for everything from your cell phone to your laptops. Have some of those available and have those ready for those essential things that you may need. So looking at all of your supervisors, looking at your workforce, have that extra battery pack so that they're at least able to keep that communication going when they need to. Consider your roofs. Are your roofs in good condition? Are they going to be able to support snow in the winter? Are they able to withstand the ice that may build up on them? Is there anything that you need to do to patch that roof now so that it's not going to leak during the winter? Take a look at that now because it's a lot easier to repair it before the snow and the ice are on it. Look at your downspouts. Are they secure? Are they going to handle the rain and the ice coming over them? What's the load capacity on them? If they do need to be maintained, are there secure points where people can get onto the roof and secure a fall harness so that they can do those operations safely? What needs to happen on that roof to make sure that it's good for the winter? And again, most roof collapses are happening in those winter months because of that additional weight on them. So looking at that now, making sure that that roof's in good condition now can help prevent problems later that you're not anticipating. Next area is to look at our equipment. Is everything ready to go for the season? Is everything in good condition? So this could be meaning having, the first thing is to have those fuel supplies. So if you've got a fuel tank on site, is it full? Is it ready to go? We've looked at some of the things that may need that extra fuel. So this could be your fleet vehicles being in operation longer to serve as a warming shelter for your people. This could simply be the fact that the tools and equipment that we need are taking more fuel in the winter. It could be a backup fuel source for an on-site generator. Do we have the fuel that we need to maintain those essential operations? The next one is looking at storage. What do we have outside that we may need to bring indoors? Do we have equipment that we've used through the summer that maybe lawnmowers or weed whackers or whatever that equipment may be that we need to put under cover so that if we maybe not weed whackers and lawnmowers, but maybe that other equipment is stuff that we need through the winter months. And if it's under a pile of snow or under a pile of ice, it's going to be hard to get to that when we need it, as we need it. So look for ways to move things indoors or put them under cover. And it could be as simple as renting a tent through the winter, or it could be as simple as putting up a simple roof over a structure just to keep something out of the weather and make it more accessible. What needs to come inside? What isn't going to fare well if it's out in the weather and subject to those cold conditions? Identify those things now so that you can start moving things around to make places for anything that does need to come in. And also consolidate your storage. It's very easy to just start parking things all over the place, but that makes it harder to keep track of them in the winter, especially in the winter months when they might be covered with snow. If you can consolidate your storage into smaller areas, it can be easier to keep track of things and allow you to have better management of it and spend less time looking for it in the winter months. And here we've got a salt pile. Of course, something like that, anytime you've got those raw materials, when you can keep them under roof, it's better, you're better able to manage them and you're going to lose less of your product because you're not going to have it melting away or going with the rain and the snow when that snow melt does happen. Excuse me. The next is to test those power generators. Make sure that they're operational and that they are going to work for you when you need them. So this could be something as small as a small generator that you're using to power tools, or it could be something that's powering your entire facility. Whatever size that generator is, make sure that it is operational, that it's fueled up, that it's ready to go, and will be operational for you when you need it. And Next area are your fleet vehicles. Just like the equipment and just like the people, we need to make sure that those fleet vehicles are ready to go and they are going to get us through those winter months. There's something that we hate to see somebody on the side of the road in the cold waiting for a service truck to come pull them up. That's not a good situation to be, especially in the winter. So what do we need to do with our fleet vehicles to make sure that they're going to get us through those winter months? And the first is to look at our parking. What can we do to keep snow and ice off of our vehicle? Is there a way to put them under roof? I know that's not always practical, and especially for a large fleet, it's just not going to be possible to get everything under a roof. But is there a way that we can perhaps channel those through an area so that they can be warmed enough to get ice and snow off of them? That's something that we see a lot of car dealerships doing in our area. They'll actually move all of their cars through the service area just long enough to get the snow and ice off of them so that they can take them back out and display them without the snow and ice. So that's a model that may not be feasible for you, but it is something that possibly could be considered to keep snow and ice off of your vehicles. But look at your parking areas. Are they sufficient? Are they going to be able to help you maintain your fleet through the winter months? Has the routine maintenance been performed on the vehicles? Have they had their oil changed? Do they need windshield washer fluid? Do they need new tires? Do they need new wipers on the windshields? What are those things that that vehicle or that operational fleet is going to need in order to get through the winter months? Do you need chains on your tires? Do you need studs on your tires? What's going to help your people operate that vehicle effectively and efficiently and safely through the winter months? The next is making sure that each vehicle in your fleet, each piece of equipment in your fleet has the gear that it needs. Is there a snow brush in the car? Do you have an emergency kit? Are there flares? Are there scrapers? What are your people going to need to keep that vehicle in top condition and to keep it safe for anything that they may be doing? Making sure that all the windows are clear and visible. Maybe making sure that the tires have what they need. Maybe it's an extra can of Fix-A-Flats. What is that? What could the vehicle possibly need that you could do now to make sure that it's not going to be disabled and be on the side of the road somewhere? And this can also be looking at having that extra battery charger in the cab so that if somebody needs to make a call, they've got the power to do it. It could be having a food and a snack in a car so that if somebody does become disabled, they at least have something to eat and drink while they're waiting to be rescued. So what can you do for those fleet vehicles now to make sure that they're as safe as possible throughout those winter months? And back again to that communication plan. What do you need to do for the people in your fleets to keep them safe during the winter? When is it too cold for them to be out? I know there are a lot of operations that we absolutely must do, and that's something that we can't avoid. But there are times when it is just too cold, too windy, too icy to be out in that situation, and we may need to wait, or we may need to postpone an operation until it's a little bit warmer, a little less windy, whatever that situation is. What are those things, and when can people stop work? I mentioned having work rest schedules to keep people warm. What does that look like? What if people are stranded? Having that communication plan ready and in place can help your workers to know that they do have options and they don't have to put themselves at risk in order to keep things running. Sometimes it's safer just to stop and wait a few minutes. So wrapping up, I've given you a lot of things here, and I hope I haven't given them to you too quickly. But the bottom line is when we are able to mitigate these things and recognize them early, we're better able to prepare for them. And it's just like any other thing that we might be doing within our facility. Having those plans in place, having that plan B and even that plan C is going to help us to recover from unexpected things that happen during the winter faster and allow us to keep those operations running a lot more safely and a lot more effectively. And at this time, I'd like to thank you everyone again for attending the webinar. And a few things, we also had this streaming on YouTube if you'd like to take a look at it there. After the webinar, we will be sending out a link if you'd like to view it again or share it with any colleagues. And there will be information if you would like to get a certificate of attendance. There will be information in that email as well for you to do that. And if we have any questions at this time, let me take a look at the chat and see if we have any questions. Feel free to throw them in chat if you do. Be glad to take those at this time. I see, will certificates of attendance be issued? Yes, and those, I see we've replied to that already. You'll get a link to request that. Are there any other questions at this time? If not, I would like to thank all of you again, and please feel free to give us a call if you have any other questions or needs. And, and I hope you all have a great day and a very productive winter.